Hello and welcome back to Shakesyear. We are working on the troublesome reign of King John, and we get to hear from the first citizen today in Act 1, Scene 4. Now, Act 1, Scene 2, and Act 1, Scene 3, and Act 1, Scene 4 are all sort of taking place outside the town of Angier, where the French have come because if they're going to start to mount an attack against the British because King John doesn't want to give up the crown, then that's where they're going to start, is outside Angier. And in part of that argument, King John was like, well, just ask the citizens. They'll tell you that they swear fealty to me, and that's enough proof that I am the rightful king. But the citizens don't do that. They're like, you need to figure out amongst yourselves who's king, and then we'll let that person in. So they went off and they did some fighting, and a whole bunch of people were killed on both sides, and the bastard was able to get the lion cloak away from Limoges. But then they come back and the heralds on either side are like, look, we killed so many people, so we won. Look, we killed so many people, so we won. And the kings are now standing again outside Angier, and they're like, okay, which one of us are you going to let in? And the citizen's like, you tell me. Like, we can't really tell who won. Like, this was up to you to figure it out. So after a little bit more flirting between the bastard and Blanche, the bastard calls the kings together and he's like, hang on a second. Why don't you just join forces and lay waste to Angier and then fight about who's the king of it afterwards? And the kings are like, yeah, I guess that could work. And the first citizen is like, I have an alternate idea. And they're like, okay, what's your idea? Like, give it to us. What's your idea? So the first citizen says, then thus, whereas that young and lusty knight incites you on to knit your kingly strengths, the motion cannot choose but please the good, and such as love the quiet of the state. But how, my lords, how should your strengths be knit? Not to oppress your subjects and your friends, and fill the world with brawls and mutinies, but unto peace your forces should be knit, to live in princely league and amity. Do this, the gates of Angier shall give way, and stand wide open to your heart's content. To make this peace a lasting bond of love remains one only honorable means, which, by your pardon, I shall here display. Louis, the Dauphin and the heir of France, a man of noted valor through the world, is yet unmarried. Let him take to wife the beauteous daughter of the King of Spain, niece to King John, the lovely Lady Blanche, begotten on his sister Eleanor. With her in marriage will her uncle give castles and towers as fitteth such a match. The kings thus joined in league of perfect love, they may so deal with Arthur, Duke of Bretagne, who is but young and yet unmeet to reign, as he shall stand contented every way. Thus have I boldly, for the common good, delivered what the city gave in charge, and as upon conditions you agree, so shall we stand content to yield the town. So this is the first citizen suggesting that they join forces by marrying Louis the Dauphin to Blanche instead of by laying waste to Angier. Because of course, the citizens of Angier don't want to see their entire town destroyed. So he goes through all of the niceties and he's like, okay, yes, building on what the bastard is saying, that you should join forces. What if you join forces through marriage instead of through war? And then you'll both be on the same side because Blanche, the daughter of the King of Spain, is King John's niece. So there's like the family tie there. Marry her from the English/Spanish side to Louis the Dauphin, who's on the French side, and then everybody's family, so nobody can like be at war with anybody. And as part of the dowry, he's like, maybe if King John gives some of these French territories to Blanche to have, then, the French kind of get some of their territories back, and then everybody can be happy, and then nobody has to worry about Arthur anymore because, like, you both have strong enough forces, and, like, nobody has a horse left in the game. It's just, like, Arthur over by himself, and he's too young to be king anyway. So what do you think? Why don't you just have this marriage happen instead of a war. And the kings kind of look at each other and they're like, well, maybe that makes sense. And Constance is like, what? What does this do to Arthur? What does this do to Arthur's claim? Like, it's nobody paying attention. He's the actual rightful king. But King John and King Philip are over here and they're like, okay, well, but which territories would you want if that was going to be a thing? And they're like, well, we would want these ones. Well, maybe we can make those ones happen. And then the bastard stands up and he's like, excuse me a second. I thought Blanche was supposed to marry me. Like, I was told that I would get to marry Blanche. And Queen Eleanor is like, I'll find you somebody else. Like, don't even worry about it. We'll find you somebody else. We need to do this, like, for political reasons. But, I'll take care of you. I'll find you a different wife other than Blanche. Just sort of cool your jets. And Constance is still, like, over here yelling. She's like, this is totally unfair, and this leaves us out, and what's going to happen to us? But the kings just go ahead and make their deal. They do actually turn to Louis the Dauphin and Blanche at the appropriate moments to be like, are you in? Like, do you want to marry her? Do you want to marry him? And Louis is like, yeah, sure, I'm cool with it. And Blanche is like, well, give me a second to think about it. Like, I think that maybe could work. So they finally all decide that, yes, Louis will marry Blanche, and that will squash all of this sort of uprising in favor of Arthur, and the two of them need to get married today. So pretty much everybody leaves except for Constance and Arthur, so they can start getting ready for the wedding of Louis and Blanche. So now it's just Constance and Arthur left on stage. Presumably the citizens have gone back into the town of Angiers because they don't have to worry about being destroyed anymore. So now it's just Constance and Arthur's like, well, the tides turn, tides change, things go different ways at different times. And Constance is like, oh, you're so young. Like, I wish that I had your optimism, but I just don't, because I know these people so much better than you. And he's like, yeah, but like, what good did crying over stuff like this ever do? And Constance is going to give us a monologue on that tomorrow. So I'll see you then. Mwah.